Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon all of you. A warm welcome on behalf of Center for Sustainable Development of Muslim World in this international webinar. The topic we have chosen today for discussion is the effects of COVID-19 to achieve sustainable development goals, prospects of Muslim world. Very important three key issues has been highlighted in our title. The first issue is effects of COVID-19. The second issue is achieving sustainable development goals. And the last one is prospects of Muslim world. And I believe our very renowned scholars and researchers, they will highlight these three key issues in their respective speeches. This is Khalid Yahya, co-founder of Center for Sustainable Development of Muslim World. And from my professional capacity, I am a CEDAR accredited mediator, Center for Effective Dispute Resolution, United Kingdom. So my role will be to facilitate with timekeeping with you, and so I do apologize in advance if I am not able to allocate adequate time what you are supposed to get to finish your speeches in respective fields. And we are very much excited having such a number of world leading scholars, researchers in our panel of speeches today. And we are also energized having so much positive responses from the viewers, audiences across the globe. So we have Dr. Noor Rahman as the chair of our seminar. He is the Chief Executive Officer, Brunei Halal Foods, Brunei Darussalam. Welcome, our honorable chair. We get as the chief guest no other than Dr. Shahjahan Khan. He is the professor of statistics, School of Sciences, University of Southern Queensland, all through Australia. Welcome our chief guest as well. We are very much privileged to have with us Dr. Mohammed Mehdi Masood. He is the assistant professor of Department of Development Studies, University of Malaysia, University of Malaya, Malaysia. He is a very promising young scholar, and you can see some of his very scholarly lectures in YouTube as well. And we have a very special guest to deliver inaugural speech and welcome speech. He is the Professor Khandokar Kabiruddin. He is the founder and executive director, London Islamic Research Academy, United Kingdom. And we have four members of our panel discussion. Started with Mr. Salahuddin Qasim Khan. He is the executive chairman, Siako Foundation, Bangladesh. And we have Professor Dr. Mohammed Tahir Khalili. He is the Vice President, Academics, International Islamic University, Islamabad, Pakistan. We have also Dr. Zia Uddin. He is the Assistant Professor, Technology Studies, Endicott College, Wusong University, South Korea. And our final panel members, Dr. Mazhar Islam. He is the Assistant Professor in Sociology, Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University, Turkey. So welcome all of our guests to join with us by responding our very humble and kind invitation. And at the same time, I also extend thanks to our viewers who are watching us from different parts of the globe. So without further ado, at this point of time, I would like to invite to deliver inaugural address and welcome speech, Professor Khandokar Kabiruddin. He is the founder and executive director, London Islamic Research Academy. Please, the floor is to Professor Kabiruddin.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Inna alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem wa ba'd. Honorable Chair of today's international webinar, Dr. Noor Rahman, the CEO of Brunei Halal Foods, Brunei Darussalam. Respected Chief Guest, Dr. Shahjahan Khan, Professor of Statistics, the University of Southern Queensland, Australia. Distinguished scholars and thinkers, dear moderator, the facilitators of today's event, and the viewers and listeners. This is a privilege for me to be here. I'm very thankful on behalf of myself and also London Islamic Research Academy to be part of this program. I'm very excited to be with you here today and feel humbled to have the auspicious moment to deliver the inaugural remarks and welcome speech in front of global scholars in this international webinar. Today we'll be discussing the effects of COVID-19 on achieving sustainable development goals, prospect of the Muslim world. The event is organized by Center for Sustainable Development of Muslim World, CSDMW. The moment we are sitting here today, the world has already lost over 500,000 fellow citizens, and also 12.5 million people are counting down and fighting for their lives. Our sincere prayers and hopes for all those victims and sufferers. The topic has been chosen today for discussion as very crucial and very appropriate in this space of time. This webinar would potentially be the opener of doors and windows for rethinking about and reestablishing or reestimating the challenges towards achieving the sustainable goal SDG set out by the United Nations, especially in the aftermath of COVID-19 coronavirus pandemics. Respected chair and guests, as Muslim, this is our responsibility, and this is the responsibility of the Muslim scholars and thinkers to be proactive and forefront players in this time to figure out the possible prospects and problems towards achieving the SDG in the aftermath of COVID-19 coronavirus pandemics. Respected chair and honorable guest, one of the core teachings of Islam is sustainable development. Sustainability in any good works and in any contribution, even if it is minor, has been ranked as most beloved action to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet, beloved Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Ahabbul a'mali ilallahi adwamuha wa in qalla. The hadith is narrated by Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha and quoted in Sahih al-Bukhari, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something sustainable, even if it is minor. Islam also encourages us about sadaqah jariyah, as sustainable charity. Sadaqah jariyah has been defined by the scholars as kullu amalin yabqa nafi'an lil bashariya hatta ba'da mawti sahibiha. Every actions of individuals which is beneficial for mankind even after the departure of the actor. Respected chair and honorable guests, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us to have a good life in this world and followed by the life in the hereafter. He is teaching us, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Surah Baqarah, verse number 201. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to seek hasana, a better life in here and in the hereafter. Respected chair, honorable guests, it will surely not be an over expectation to the Muslim scholars and the leader of the Muslim world to expect a leading role and position in offering a plan for sustainable development for the whole mankind after having all encouragement and instructions from Quran and Sunnah. But unfortunately, we could not demonstrate such strength in the near past except in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his beloved and blessed companions, and sometimes even after that in the history of Islam. However, I'm optimistic today's discussion and this kind of discussion and discourses will resurrect the sense of responsibility and will make a positive contribution for the Ummah. Mr. Chair and honorable guest, without your sacrifices, it would not be we would not be having such a beautiful, lovely day and moment. I sincerely request your full and humble presence throughout the event and wise contribution for the Ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward us all. Thanking you once again, I want to conclude my welcome and opening remarks. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Khandakar Kabiruddin, for his wonderful and very precise inaugural address. Dear viewers, we have telecasted our program both Facebook Live and YouTube, and we have started our program in 10 a.m. UK time and 12 p.m. of both Turkey and Saudi Arabia time, and 3 p.m. From Bangladesh time, and 5 p.m. of Malaysia time. So at this point of time, I would like to address a welcome speech by Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim Khalil Anwari. He is a visiting faculty, Sharif Hidayatullah State Islamic University, Jakarta, Indonesia. The floor is yours, Dr. Anwari, please. Please unmute your microphone.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Thank you so much, dear moderator. All praises goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us an unique opportunity to be here. We are going to start, or it's already started. We are in international online conference on the effects of COVID-19 to achieve sustainable development goals, prospects of Muslim world. I warmly welcome all distinguished honorable guests. We have got Dr. Mehdi Masood from University of Malaya, and our chair, Dr. Nur Rahman, and chief guest going to be Dr. Shahjahan Khan and some other world-renowned scholars is present here. Among them, one of the scholar, Salahuddin Kashim Khan, is the executive chairman, Siaco Foundation, Bangladesh, and Professor Muhammad Tahir Khalili from Pakistan, Dr. Ziauddin from South Korea, and Dr. Mazhar Islam, Assistant Professor of Sociology, Istanbul, from Turkey. So I warmly welcome all the guests, all the audience from home and abroad to our international webinar. I'm going to start my welcoming speech that in September 2015, countries throughout the world spread and they spearheaded by the United Nations signed up to a new agenda for comprehensive and sustainable human development. The 2030 agenda aspires to achieve 17 high-level sustainable development goals, SDGs, and 169 specific targets encompassing the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of development. These aspirations for human dignity and to leave no one behind is fully in line with the principles and objectives of development from an Islamic perspective or Maqasid al-Sharia. The SDGs aim to improve the quality of people's lives in a number of ways, such as eradicating poverty and hunger, promoting health and education, reducing inequality and gender disparities, building sustainable infrastructure and making cities more sustainable, combating climate change, protecting oceans, forests, and biodiversity. The SDGs support peace and justice and promote economic growth that is inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. Islamic philosophy and worldview can renew our attitude and outlooks towards socio-economic problems and environmental challenges. Islamic socio-financial institutions like zakat and waqf can contribute towards scaling up efforts in commercially non-viable but socio-vital projects and programs. There is much potential for Islamic finance to promote sustainable economic development through such approaches as widening access to finance, including microfinance, financing infrastructure projects, and expanding the reach of takaful or Islamic insurance. I'm going to conclude by saying MDGs entered into force in 2000 and SDGs in 2016 under UNDP to be achieved for sustainable development in the world. Islamic law has prescribed principles 1400 years ago in Holy Quran and Sunnah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dealing with number one, protection of life, intellect, progeny, and wealth. Number two, promotion of justice, peace, prosperity, education, healthcare, women's rights. Number three, elimination of discrimination, poverty, hunger, and injustice. Islamic law is a complete code of life, providing guidelines in every aspect of life, comprehensively defined in Holy Quran, such as protection of religion, protection of life, protection of intellect, protection of progeny, protection of wealth, etc. When we look at SDGs and compare them with objective of Islamic law, one can understand that what SDGs demand, comprehensively described and demanded for 1400 years ago in Holy Quran and Sunnah, and practically conforced by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Dr. Anwar, please make a bit shorter, please. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's my last line. And the world, and as a Muslim, we believe for betterment, and especially we believe in hereafter. That's all. هذا ما عندي والعلم عند الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim Khalil Anwari, for his welcoming speech. Without further ado, now I would like to invite Dr. Mohammed Mehdi Masood. He is the Assistant Professor, Department of Development Studies, University of Malaya, Malaysia, for presenting his keynote speech. Please, Dr. Mohammed Mehdi Masood.
Please turn on your mic, please.
Yeah. Please unmute Dr. Masood. Yeah. Thank you, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the organizing committee, Honorable Chair, Dr. Nur Rahman, then Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Shahjahan Khan, Honorable Moderator, and to all respected discussants. I'm very pleased and honored to be with you today. I'm going to talk about the effects of COVID-19 to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, Prospects of Muslim World. I just want to share with you that I'm not going to discuss a scientific paper. It is all about general overview of the impact of COVID-19 on sustainable development and a way forward. One planet, one home, one chance. It is our choice what we do with it. So we all are agreed to make the world a better place. As time flies and 2030 draws near, many questions come to our minds, such as how much have we achieved so far? Are we on the right track to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030? Is our national development plan consistent with our aspiration? Have we developed a viable plan to accomplish the sustainable development goals by 2030? And many more questions. Out of the blue, while many nations are progressing well on their sustainable development agenda, COVID-19 has pounced at the same time. Needs no explanation that we are all going through a tumultuous period. COVID-19 has had an unprecedented impact on all dimensions of sustainable development. That means beside health, our economy, our society, our humanity, lives, livelihoods, education, domestic violence, religious practices, everything is jeopardized. Therefore, ongoing COVID-19 pandemic compels us to rethink, redesign, revisit, relook, and make strides in order to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. Certainly, this pandemic has exposed the crisis in global health systems. And while this seriously jeopardizes the prospect for achieving SDG 3 by 2030, it also has far-reaching effects on all other sustainable development goals. This is due to the fact that all the SDGs are interconnected. For example, access to clean water, Sustainable Development Goals, which is prerequisite of Sustainable Development Goal 11. Because for being able to hand wash frequently, living in substandard, unhygienic, and overcrowded conditions such as slums. So this is Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is prerequisite for Sustainable Development Goal 3, because this increases the risk of exposure to the virus and pre-existing health conditions such as non-communicable diseases. So we'll not be able to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 3, which will lead to exacerbated disease outcomes. So indeed, the loss of life is painful, but the effects on the world economy and the sustainable development prospects are also of concern. The IMF estimates that our world has entered a recession, and although the full economic impact of the crisis is difficult to predict, preliminary estimates place it at $2 trillion. Global GDP is expected to contract sharply in 2020. Estimated range is from 3.2% to 5.2%, potentially the largest contraction in economic activity since the Great Depression and far worse than the 2008 and 2009 global financial crisis. Recent statistics indicate a contraction in the GDP of countries around the world, with Singapore experiencing a contraction of 10.6%, China 6.8%, France 6%, Italy 5%, Norway 1.9%, and South Korea 1.4% as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is due to the fact that pharmaceutical industry, solar energy sector, information and electronics industry, aviation industry, etc. are severely affected by this pandemic. Tourism sector is currently one of the most affected sectors. 50 million jobs in the global travel and tourism sector may be at risk. The tourism industry in Vietnam is expected to lose up to $7.7 billion in the first quarter of the year. Tourism Authority of Thailand estimates that the country could lose $3.1 billion in income from services. Then unemployment rate is increasing rapidly. International Labour Organization estimates some 25 million people could lose their jobs, with those in informal employment suffering most from lack of social protection. Then more importantly, in many parts of the world, the pandemic and its effects are exacerbated by the crisis in achieving clean water and sanitation target, which is SDG 6, then weak economic growth and the absence of decent work, which is SDG 8, then pervasive inequalities, which is SDG 10, and above all, entrenched poverty, which is Sustainable Development Goal, and food insecurity, Sustainable Development Goal 2. The World Bank estimates the crisis will push some 11 million people into poverty. In 2020 alone, estimates that around 35 to 60 million could be pushed into extreme poverty, reversing the declining global trend of the last 20 plus years. Some 1.6 billion people working in the informal sector, including the gig economy, are estimated to be at risk of losing their livelihoods, and many lack access to any form of social protection. In addition, 10 million of the world's children could be faced acute malnutrition. The number of people facing acute food insecurity could almost double relative to 2019, rising to 265 million. Education sector is severely affected, accounting for the inability to access the internet for remote learning. This could result in out-of-school rates in primary education not seen since the mid-1980s. UNESCO already estimated that some 1.25 billion students are affected, posing a serious challenge to the attainment of Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is quality education. Then let's take a look for the environmental impact. Drastic drop in the automobile traffic volume and mass industrial production resulted in improved air pollution levels around the world. However, increasing medical waste and wastewater generation, as well as electricity consumption, has negative consequences around the world. The use of plastics and plastic bottles, masks, personal protective equipment, and other medical equipment is growing faster than ever, creating tons and tons dangerous medical waste. The problem is more serious in many developing countries, given that there is no proper disposal system or recycling center for waste management. However, the fundamental question arises in our minds: what can we do to achieve sustainable development goals? So there are many possible ways, but due to time constraint, I'll mention few of them here. Number one, need to enhance political will and commitment. Secondly, we need to coordinate a stimulus package. Then third, need to provide short-term unemployment benefits to vulnerable groups to reduce unemployment and boost productivity. Fourth, governments and monetary authorities must stabilize financial markets by injecting much needed liquidity. Then public and private investment in sustainable development, such as building resilient infrastructure. Then we need to strengthen social protection system. Then also we need additional investment in crisis prevention, risk reduction, and planning. Then need to eliminate trade barriers and restrictions that affect supply chain. Then we need to take fiscal measures, must be taken into account to save businesses and financial institutions. Need to provide tax relief for the vulnerable groups. And world leaders must realize the need for a climate change crisis. Otherwise, it could lead to a situation as serious as the coronavirus pandemic. Last but not least, we need to stop our as usual business, particularly for Muslim world. It is right time to think about sustainable Islamic business model, which is shifting from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And we should bear in mind that achieving sustainable development goals is not only the government's business, but also we all have to play an important role. That's from my part. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our honorable keynote speaker, for his very wonderful and very precise keynote speech. He has raised so many issues in his very short and precise speech. He has mentioned to reduce the losses from this COVID-19 pandemic situation. A very important issue is political commitment from the world leaders. That is also very important. And also he mentioned the governments should be stabilized to go further to minimize the losses due to COVID-19 issues. And also there should have a public and private sector. There should have a cooperation from these two important sectors. And at the same time, investment should be done a great amount after this COVID-19 issue. Our viewers and respected guests, we will try to make the length of our discussion today as short as we can. Now, I will go to the panel of discussion in this regard. I will try to accommodate you to give longer time, but at this point of time, I would urgently request to our discussions to finish your speeches within 8 to 10 minutes, please. So now first I would like to go Dr. Mazhar Islam. He is the assistant professor in sociology, Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University, Turkey, to deliver his speech. Please, Dr. Mazhar Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. Honorable guests and the keynote speaker, president of this session. This is Mazhar. I'm from Bangladesh. I got my honors and masters in sociology from Sylhet Shahjalan University of Science and Technology, and then I came to Turkey with Turkish government scholarship for my PhD, and I got my PhD from Turkey. So I've been working in Turkish University for the last 3 years as an assistant professor. Yeah, my specialization is climate change, and on which I wrote my PhD dissertation. So today I'm going to discuss how the COVID-19 is disturbing achieving sustainable development goals from the perspective of climate change. I mean, from the perspective of environment. We all know that before talking about COVID-19 and its impacts on achieving sustainable development goals, first we have to rewind some Millennium Development Goals. Which is saying that all countries have to achieve those Millennium Development Goals by 2015, and there are 8 Millennium Development Goals. That by keeping cooperation with these 8 Millennium Development Goals, later 17 Sustainable Development Goals were developed, and in each both of these goals, I mean in Sustainable Development Goals and in Millennium Development Goals, climate is a very important factor. We all know that climate is our environment is very important to live a smooth life, to continue our species. We all know that if we are the human beings who are the most responsible, according to researchers, human beings are the most responsible for destroying the immediate environment. So during this COVID-19, what we saw that people started using less transportation. People started keeping themselves in the home environment. People started to consume less, and as a result, what we see, people are, because I live in Istanbul, I talk to many people living in Istanbul. You know, Istanbul is a big city, metropole. So I talk to many people, local people. How do you handle this situation? Do you use your private cars? You know, when people will use more cars, more transportations, consumes more, then it will impact our immediate environment. It might be that it is saying that though our impact is local, though our contribution is local, but the impact will be global. I, as a person, if I consume, if I emit more carbon dioxide in Istanbul, it's not like that people of Istanbul or people of Turkey will get the impacts. No, it's not like that. People of all countries will get the impacts. So our contribution might be local, but the impacts will be global. That's what I wanted to say. As a result, when we have to think about sustainable development goals, we have to think about cooperation, because whatever we do from all over the world will be impacted, will be affected. So that's why we need local cooperation, regional cooperation, and international cooperation to tackle these problems. We know that um, there is a research. It says that each year 6 million hectares of productive dry land turns into worthless desert, and if this continues over 3 decades, this would amount to an area roughly as large as Saudi Arabia. And another study says that more than 11 million hectares of forests are destroyed yearly, and if this continues over 3 decades, this would amount as large as the size of India. So we have to think about it, how this situation is, how this is alarming for us. If we want to live, if we want to continue our species, we have to think about it. We have to think a sustainable environment, because we all know that if we cannot, sometimes environment gives us some, we sometimes we blame Allah, we blame the nature, that this happens due to natural disasters. But why natural disasters are happening so frequently these days? Because of our activities, because of humans activities. So in each and every cases, humans activities are most responsible for destroying our immediate environment. This COVID-19 has two sides of impacts on our environment, because this environment is one of the factors to achieve sustainable development goals. So COVID-19 has two sides of impacts on environment. One is positive and the other one is negative. The positive one is that people are using less transport, people are using consuming less, people are production is less, because many industries are closed. Even if they are not closed, they are producing less, because most of their employees are outside of the work area, so they are producing less. So as a result, we are emitting less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This is a good symptom for the environment. You know what I mean? So in the other side, it is expected that the researchers, the development organizers, the development experts, they are saying that if COVID-19 situation continues, many people will lose their job. Many people will lose their job. What they will do, they will go to their rural area, and there will be a pressure, there will be a great pressure on rural area, because these people will go back to their rural area. They will start exploiting, they will start exploiting their immediate environment. They will cut their forests, they will catch more fishes, they will produce more, they will try every possible means to live their life. As a result, this will have great impact, negative implications on our immediate environment. So if we enter the industries, because the industries are, many industries are closed now, or many of the industries are producing less. So when the situation will be normal, when we'll go to a new normal, all the industries will go for massive production. So if massive production will continue, then we'll at the same time will emit lots of amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Automatic, as a result, the atmosphere will be exploited, will be polluted again, so which will have impact on our human species, on the greenhouse gas effect, and on the agricultural production, which will raise the temperature, global temperature, which will have impact on sea level rising, and that would be very dangerous for the low-lying countries like Bangladesh. You know, Bangladesh is a low-lying country which has 20% or 23% coastal area. So these coastal areas may go underwater. So this would be a alarming situation for countries like ours, like Bangladesh, Maldives. These, however, the developed country, as we all know, that developed countries have their big economy, they have more developed infrastructure. They could somehow they could manage themselves, but it will be a great impact for the developing countries like ours. So if we want to keep this situation in a very equilibrium condition, we have to think development. At the same time, we have to think our environment. Yeah, development is needed in order to achieve all other sustainable development goals. In order to achieve all other millennium development goals, we have to keep continuing production, so without production we cannot achieve development goals. So at the same time, while we making production, we should not forget our environment. We all know that if there is a scientist, Malinowski says that population increases geometrically, whereas production increases arithmetically. I mean, population size is increasing more than the production. So if it continues, the nature will have impact on us. That impact is we have been seeing right now, that COVID-19 is also, some people are saying that it is also a natural punishment, because we damages this nature, and nature is trying to bring the equilibrium into its system, because nature has a system. It has to run, it has to continue, and nature also sometimes, according to Malinowski, every after 100 years nature tries to keep the balance among all other things. And the last thing is that while we have to regarding sustainable development, and keeping concentration on environment, there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of treaties, there are a lot of regulations, and my point is that there should be some regional cooperation, there should be some local cooperation, and there should be some international cooperation. Another thing is that from Islamic perspective, we all know that our Prophet Sallallahu Islam said, when you take food, you have to divide your stomach into 3 parts, right? When you take food, you have to divide your stomach. One would be filled up by food, one would be filled up by water, and the other part would be keep empty. So if we follow the instruction of our Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam while consuming, because we know that developed countries are consuming more. Their consumption is much more higher than ours. So if we this saying, this verse from Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we have to consume less. So then we can achieve a better world. We can achieve a sustainable world. Even you know what? In 1983, there was a Brundtland Commission. Brundtland Commission was an independent body of United Nations. It is their definition of sustainable development is, they said in this way: sustainable development is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their needs. I mean, in this definition, we get the implications of our Prophet's hadith, what we say, because he said that we have to consume in the way that our next generation can consume in the same way we are consuming right now. So if it is the high time, this COVID-19 situation, again, I hope that this COVID-19 situation makes us bound to get back to the Islamic philosophy of environment, Islamic philosophy of nature, to rethink, to revisit all of our actions, to rethink our activities, and to move forward following the Islamic perspectives. Definitely, we should not go beyond. We have to, even we know that there is no clash between religion, our religion and science. There is no clash. So we have to bring cooperation between our religion and science, and we have to work accordingly. By this way, we can achieve sustainable development if we can ensure sustainable environment. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for listening. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much, Dr. Mazhar Islam, for his wonderful speech, and he raises so many important issues, more particularly Islamic perspective and also the general perspective. Thank you very much, Dr. Mazhar Islam. At this point of time, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Mohammed Tahir Khalili. He's the Vice President, Academics, International Islamic University, Islamabad, all through Pakistan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Thank you, Brother Khalid, and thank you. I am glad to see this galaxy of scholars from different parts of the world. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on this important issue. My talk won't be such a scientific or scholarly talk, but just coming from the mental health background and teaching psychology in the international university. I have also a very good experience working for 12 years in the Republic of Ireland as a senior clinical psychologist. My point is that just to take the COVID-19 and the sustainable development goals or the global goals, the point is that if we look at in the context of the Muslim world, they are mostly the developing countries. Then there is one thing: how much awareness is available in the Muslim countries regarding the sustainable goals or global goals. Even now, I'm not talking about the common people, but even at the policy level, the policy makers, how much they are aware of this these goals. Don't take me wrong, I'm not critical, but we have to be realistic. How much we can get benefits of the sustainable goals. Those who developed or designed these goals, did they consult the people from the Muslim world, or how many experts from the Muslim world they contributed, they have a say to develop these goals? Because if there is no contribution from the Muslim world, then it means that if you look at on the ground, because whenever you are applying something which is coming from abroad or from some foreign countries, then you need to indigenize that in that very culture according to the needs and requirements of that culture. Then first my point would be how much we can raise the awareness among our society, particularly at the policy level, to achieve these goals. Second is the promotion of the social sciences. What I experienced during this COVID-19 time, and I did a research, inshallah, it will be published very soon from a reputed journal, and then I will share with you. We noticed that when we got this pandemic and the people were upset, the people were perplexed, there was no cure, no treatment, and even the vaccine weren't available. The only thing which were available, that was the behavior modification, how we can change our lifestyle, our behavior, and that is the area of social sciences, or particularly psychology and sociology, how we can bring changes in the people mindset, how we can bring changes in the people lifestyle, how they can modify their lifestyle to prevent from the hazards or from this pandemic themselves. That was the only way to prevent yourself from this deadly disease. My point is that in the developing country, particularly in the Muslim world, the development of social sciences is lacking. We don't focus on the social sciences, how we can develop this area, because mostly this goes against the policy makers if we develop the social sciences. And if you don't have a developed social sciences, you can look at the history. Those countries, they were very much robust and strongest in the other area of development, like the infrastructure or physical development. But when they were weak in the social sciences, then they didn't sustain, and they they divided in many countries. There are plenty of examples exist even in the recent past. My point would be that any developmental goals or any things coming from abroad that need that we could analyze and we can make it according to our own needs and cultural beliefs. If we don't bring changes in our belief system, in our mindset, we cannot implement that. I worked for 12 years in the Republic of Ireland. I was a psychologist and a psychotherapist. And then I found that the thing which we bring from abroad, that is very good for that agriculture. I don't deny that is based on the human experiences. They work very hard. But if you could bring this to your own culture, you either need to modify that according to your needs or indigenously adopt these things. For instance, we have this one of our guest speaker. He mentioned we have a system of the Islamic economics and how we can integrate that with the sustainable goods. That is the sadaqat and zakat and the welfare of the society. Mostly the developed world, their programs are based on cost benefits, and they're usually looking the profit and the money making and how the money should be spent and how in return the money should be gained. But the Islamic perspective of welfare, that is to help the human being, not in terms of to get something back in kinds like in money, but you have, this is the responsibility of every Muslim to help the people without any financial gain or any other benefits, but that is just for the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the people to make the environment clean and sustainable, to provide clean water, to have a clean environment. How we can make this literature on these ideas and rhetorically the prevalence of these ideas are available in our society, but practically if we could look at, we don't have any such institutions that can provide these things in a practical way. Then the Muslim world particularly need to have some institutionalized culture that they can institutionalize all these things and can easily provide for the welfare of the people. Uh, like suppose the health sector is mostly ignored in the Muslim world. How we can develop this sector, because we have seen in this COVID-19. But apart from that, you can see the other diseases, even the normal, the routine diseases, which are prevailing in our society in the Muslim world, but we are helpless to treat them or to provide some basics prophylactic care or treatment to prevent their disease. Then my point is that we should take all these things from the developed countries, because their policy is different. That is depends upon their budget and their financial status. They have gone through all these things which we are now. We are still facing the same problem which they have 100 years or 200 years ago. Then how we can modify, we can go, we cannot go alone from the word. We have to go with the word. We have to be consistent with the word policies. We are try ourselves, but still we need how we can and how much we can modify these, and we can make it in according to our culture within our limited resources. Thanks God, like our government, the current government, they focus on this billion tree projects. They are still growing the trees, and plenty of trees in billions they grow in different parts of the country. And this time the people are feeling that we got our weather back, and we have a different weather rather than 2 years or 1 year ago. This is the only simple example from this. We need the social development. We need to promote the social sciences, to develop the social sciences, to bring changes in the attitude and belief system of the people. And we need to change the mindset. If we cannot change the mindset, if we cannot change the attitude, even if we bring technologies, even if we have a very developed infrastructure, but that won't work. Then my point will be, being a social scientist, working in this area, that we need to promote the social sciences. Second, in the developing countries, if you look at the sustainable goal development, there is one is with the mental health related. We have plenty of drug addicts. Even in Pakistan, we have 7 million drug addicts in this country. And if you look at the other developing countries, they have many drug addicts in their countries. We have many mental health issues. This issues is totally ignored, and there is no health without mental health. This is established fact. We have to recognize this thing. Then we have to focus on the people mental health as well, because physical health is essential. That is also uh, mm, that is also necessary, that we have the health facility, but we also in the Muslim world need to have a mental health facility grounded in human rights perspective, because sometimes we violate the human rights. We don't respect the individual with the mental health. We have attached social stigma to the individual who are suffering from mental health, even minor mental health. Then we need to bring these changes in our attitude and in our policies. We need to develop the social sciences, particularly the behavioral sciences, to bring changes in our behavior. Then we can get benefits of these social development goals. I think from my side, this, and once again, I'm thankful to all of you to listen to me, and I share my ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Muhammad Tahir Khalili, for his very beautiful speech, which covered so many issues, and definitely our viewers will be highly benefited by his raised points. Finally, I want to go to the last member of our panel. He is no other Mr. Salauddin Qasim Khan. He is the Executive Chairman, Siaku Foundation, Bangladesh. Please, Muhammad Salauddin Qasim Khan. Please unmute your
Please turn
microphone.
on your mic.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So, Dr. Noor Rahman, Chair, distinguished chief guest, fellow panelists, and a galaxy of academicians. I'm giving you a different perspective. I'm from the private sector, a former president of the Bangladesh Employees Federation. The current COVID crisis could be attributed to ignoring one of the major sustainable development goals, number 3, which alerted the whole world of an upcoming global pandemic when the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board submitted their reports in September 2019. So basically, we ignored establishing health systems to detect and control potential disease outbreaks, abandoned the cycle of panic and neglect. We warned that lower resource communities are hit harder by such outbreaks, and investing in preparedness, which will improve health outcomes and sustainable development goals. So from that perspective, and I would like to bring the perspective from the OIC by a report from CESRIC Ankara by July 2nd, 879,000 cases have been recorded in 56 OIC countries, of which there have been 22,000 deaths. So in the global perspective, in looking at what is happening in the United States, I think the OIC countries, mashallah, have been doing better for, not that we have better health systems. I think the United States, the UK have much better systems, but somehow they have failed to take this virus seriously. But however, we are facing the economic consequences of this outbreak, particularly the disruption of global supply chains. Bangladesh is the second largest RMG supplier to the world, and orders have dropped by more than 20%. The other impact on Bangladesh economy, for example, is the fall in oil prices in the Middle East. This is affecting, our remittances from the Middle East. Bangladesh receives nearly $16 billion every year from remittances. And then the falling commodity prices and the financial markets turmoil, which has resulted in significant fall in asset prices and stock markets, exacerbating economic impact. So I think the distinguished academicians have brought into sharp focus the background of the COVID and also the SDG goals. And here I believe that these are very closely interlinked, because we are all committed to achieving the SDG goals by 2030. But the big question is, can we do it because of this intervention of this pandemic all over the world? In the OIC countries, nearly 64.5 million people are suffering from acute hunger. And food security is a very important component of the SDG goals. So I think, the IDB has done work in this area, and they have proposed national strategic reserves and food aid. I think you might know that OIC countries rely on food imports of $65 billion annually from other OIC countries and from all over the world. But for example, in the halal sector, which I think will become a very important segment, the OIC countries are not playing the major role. It is the non-OIC countries who are really leading in the $1 trillion plus halal sector, whether it is in tourism, food, or travel, transportation, etc. So then the question of eradicating food waste. Every year, all our countries, the amount of food we waste, if we could preserve it, would equal to the need and the value of the food deficit in the OIC countries. So we need to think of regional approaches of food security, having food banks, from farm to fork. How do we achieve that? And also regional, not only national strategic food reserves, but also regional food reserves. There are many countries in the OIC, like Afghanistan, which are landlocked. But here again, I must say, things are working in the ECO region. Kazakhstan, after the outbreak of COVID, had put an initial ban on all food exports, but has immediately reconsidered it. In the GCC, Saudi Arabia has made deliberate attempts to remove technical bottlenecks of importation of livestock from Djibouti. And in this, the Siako region, Bangladesh has offered food and medical assistance to Maldives 2 months ago through our Bangladesh Navy. So such examples of regional cooperation in the Islamic spirit of brotherhood, I think speaks very well about the concept of Islamic brotherhood and the Ummah. And we need to support the low-income food deficit countries. There are 13 LDCs in the OIC living below the poverty line, and 26 OIC countries who are low-income food deficit countries. Efforts should be made to support these countries through sadaqah, donations, zakat, and the emergency security measures. The concept of social safety nets, which have been with us for 1,500 years, the concept of zakat or kaf needs to be institutionalized. In Malaysia, Indonesia, Turkey, Iran, they're very well organized zakat systems, but in Bangladesh, it is left to private individuals. If we can mobilize the zakat money which is raised every year, we could, because financing is going to become very important to implement the SDG goals. With the COVID-19 situation, whether funding of SDG goals would be available to countries like Bangladesh is a question mark. So we need to also, enhance internal resource mobilization by institutionalizing zakat on awqaf. And the good news is UNDP and World Bank, they are looking at the concept of zakat for poverty alleviation in our countries. So I'm a great believer that regional cooperation should be intensified in this very difficult time for the Islamic countries. And, we need to have increased productivity, and I said supply chains. The OIC program of action for development of strategic commodities like rice, wheat, cassava, palm oil is being implemented. And there is a framework of action for food trade and investment. There should be free trade for agricultural food items between the Islamic world. We have signed preferential trade or OIC preferential trade system. We need to implement it and make it operational in this COVID situation. Then the concept of South-South triangular cooperation is very important so that we can, add value to our agricultural products. For example, like Malaysia is doing in Sierra Leone in the palm oil sector, and Bangladesh has also done very well in the rice growing of rice, which can be shared regionally and within the Islamic world. The idea of debt relief for the less, developed OIC countries need to be very seriously considered both by the multilateral financial institutions, but also the Islamic financial institutions like IDB, who have given loan to other member states. So I think debt relief needs to be looked at very seriously. And why regionalism? Why SIACO? The concept of SIACO, in fact, emerged from, I think I should give you a background of SIACO Foundation, emerged from the historic city of Bandung in 1993, when Dr. B.J. Habibie was Minister of State for Science and Technology at a very high-level seminar with the IDP president, Dr. Ahmad Muhammad Ali, as the co-chair. And Dr. B.J. Habibie has been instrumental, as you know, for the flotation of the idea of the D8, the developing aid, which was also the spearheaded by Erbakan of Turkey and Dr. Mahathir and 5 other large OIC countries, including Bangladesh. So it started in 1993, and we are trying to implement this idea through the private sector. We have a foundation in Bangladesh, but we have a task force in Malaysia and also one in Brunei, in which Dr. Nur Rahman is a distinguished member. So the whole idea is that we create linkages between 3 ASEAN countries, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Brunei, with 2 SAARC countries, Bangladesh and Maldives. So the idea is to create networks for the private sector and also the universities. What we are planning to do is to have a knowledge grid where all the universities in Southeast Asia will be linking up with each other, and in South Asia and maybe throughout the world, so that we can create a knowledge base, societies to face the challenge of the 4th industrial revolution, ultimately with the hope that we can have a SIACO online university. The government of Bangladesh is supporting this initiative. We have shared it with Dr. Noor, our friends in Brunei and in Malaysia. Inshallah, we hope we can take this idea forward. And I would request the distinguished academicians if they could also be involved in reaching this vision of greater interaction through online learning, which I think would be the new norm in academia. So I won't take more of your time, but to say to thank Dr. Noor for inviting me to be a panelist today and to give you a private sector view of COVID-19, which will affect all of us. And I think the idea of leaving no one behind is fundamental to SDG, and it is fundamental to the concept of Islamic brotherhood. Thank you. I think I finished my comments here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our honorable guest, Mr. Salahuddin Qasim Khan, for his very beautiful speech. Definitely, our viewers, you all know that Mr. Salahuddin Qasim Khan, he's one of the very senior leading personalities in the world context in our respective field, what we have chosen today to discuss, and that is the effects of COVID-19 to achieve sustainable development goals, prospects of Muslim world. And he has raised and pointed out accurately some very important points. Definitely, the viewers, we can do further research on these particular topics in coming days. Dear listeners and viewers, at this point of time, I would like to invite our honorable chief guest of today's seminar. He is no other than Dr. Shahjahan Khan. Currently, he is a professor of statistics, School of Sciences, University of Southern Queensland, Australia. He has a very wonderful profile. He was teaching at University of Dhaka, including some other world-renowned universities. For instances, King Fahad University of Petroleum and Minerals, Saudi Arabia, Sultan Qaboos University, Oman, University of Bahrain as well. And at the same time, he already published over 170 research papers and presented 15 workshops, 25 keynote addresses, and over 50 invited talks in scholarly gatherings. Wonderful achievement he already achieved, mashallah. He also supervised 12 PhD and 3 MPhil students. He has authored 2 study books on distribution theory and statistical influence published by University of Southern Queensland. And no other that he is also a elected expatriate fellow of Bangladesh Academy of Sciences since 2013. He has also so many things to address, but without further ado, I would like to invite at this point of time Professor Dr. Shahjahan Khan to deliver his chief guest speech, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and peace and blessings to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the prophets and all the believers. Now it is an honor to be here in this scholarly gathering, and I just wanted to share my screen if I can share it so I can show you what I'm going to say.
Yes, please.
Just trying to do that. There you go. Can you see the screen or?
Not yet. Share screen.
Share. What do you share screen? Okay, let me see if shares. And I never used this system. I used to.
Okay, no problem.
We used to Zoom and
yes,
Skype and so on. So let me see. Share audio. Why is not working?
Yes. Does it work? Share screen.
There is an option of sharing screen, but
yeah, it's working now. Yes, perfect. Yeah, perfect.
You see my slide?
Yes, exactly. Yes, please.
I'm sorry. Thanks for your patience. Now, I want to thank first the organizer of this international webinar for organizing this event, and I'm delighted to be among these world-renowned scholars. And it is a privilege to be a small part of it. Now, this is about the Sustainable Development Goal, but what is going to be impacted by the COVID-19, and particularly in the Muslim world. So I'm going to take you through some of the slides that will show you my perspective and viewpoints that I want to discuss and share with you. Now, this is the world where I'm down under here in Australia, as you can see. And we have people all over the world, almost except from North America. So this Sustainable Development Goal is a follow-up of actually Millennium Development Goal. So it has got 17 goals. Those are all interconnected, and it is they hope that by 2020, those 17 goals will be observed or achieved. Now, because of the COVID, this is going to be probably questionable. So whether we achieve these goals or not, we always need to assess or measure them, evaluate them. And the way we're going to evaluate them is using some measures, for example, indices. And I'll share some of my understanding on that bit later. But talking about the COVID-19, it is a challenge, and nobody knew this is coming. Although Mr. Fauci, he said that he knew 3-4 years ago something will happen. But if they knew, why didn't they prepare? That's what Mr. Salahuddin Khan mentioned about the preparedness. If they knew there was something coming, but they were not prepared. So that's not acceptable at a pandemic at this level. Now, this has changed the whole world. Even Mexico closed border with the United States when it was supposed to be the other way around. So it has exposed the humanity to such a level that never been experienced in generations. That human being is so vulnerable and so helpless in the face of a small, tiny virus, which cannot be seen without a microscope. It has put in tremendous stress on the health system. Look at UK, even New York, the best health system in the world. They did not work. They could not cope up, simply. So it went so far so that the report that they publish, the number of infected cases is become so unreliable that people have hardly any belief and truth in it. So that if you go to developing countries, even worse. They have certain fixed number, and every day they will put in number in from that range of numbers. It doesn't reflect the fact. So there's another challenge, that whether the truth that we should be speaking of is a casualty due to this pandemic. I also think that this attitude of economy is the wrong attitude, because in Islam, saving life is number one maqasid Sharia, and also as human being, saving life come first. So economy come after saving life. If there's no people, who is going to worship? Who is going to buy commodities? Who is going to produce commodities? Who is going to consume commodities? So the challenge is to save life, and that should be the priority. And Islam has taught clearly to how to face this kind of pandemic, and Muslim and non-Muslim alike during this pandemic is practicing Sharia. Actually, I wrote a couple of articles on this as well. The idea of quarantine came from the famous hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that don't get in or out from the pandemic area. And also, we are taught about hygiene from day one we become Muslim, and cleanliness every day 5 times we have to wash ourselves. So the whole world is now doing sanitization and cleanliness and so on and so forth. They are practicing Sharia, they like it or not. And their nightclubs are closed, their bars are closed, so they are away from the evil things that they will be engaging in. And even this week in Sydney, there was an outbreak of COVID from a bar. So that's the dangerous place to go. So one thing reminds me of another hadith of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that there is no disease without a treatment. That actually encouraged and drove generations of Muslim doctors and health specialists to look for cure for every disease. And no wonder that the Muslim established hospitals, I mean the modern style hospitals, 500 years before Europe had any modern style hospitals. The impact of this pandemic is going to be universal. It's not going to be limited to any individual or a country or region. Everyone and every sector is going to be impacted. Some of them are making money, some of them are losing money, but losing money is much higher than making money. And I think as human being, not just as Muslim, we should take a break and think our priorities. Should we be running after money? How much money we need? Should we be running after materialism? How much matter we need? Or we should be thinking about humanity. We should be turning back to what a human being should be like. And that's the challenge that I'm going to talk about a bit later. So now, as I mentioned, that when you want to assess the success or achievement of sustainable development goal, you need certain tools or indices. That's what the former UN Secretary General emphasized as statistics, the critical are critical for evidence-based decision making, and across culture and historical backgrounds of countries, and irrespective of their levels of development. He also mentioned that in the UN Assembly acknowledged the fundamental importance of sustainable national statistical capacity to produce reliable and timely statistics and indicators. Now, I'm particularly mentioning this because by training, I'm a statistician, and I want to give an example. Because if you don't have reliable statistics, you are not going to achieve anything, because your planning is depending on false and pretended statistics. And as a matter of fact, you are not going to then achieve much. Before the 2016 US president election in 2015, the then presidential candidate, Donald Trump, said that 80% of the white Americans are killed by black people. And when the journalist checked and investigated that he gave a reference of the San Francisco Bureau of Crime Statistics. That organization did not exist. He made it up. When the journalist challenged him, he said, am I going to check every statistic? That is a dangerous game. And the fact is that only 15% of the white Americans are killed by the black. So statistics is so important, and making it up can be dangerous. That's why I think we need to go back to evidence that is reliable. And if we don't have evidence, we should not be believing things without evidence. And people have now created alternative facts, fake news. All these things are actually taking away from the facts, which are very unhelpful when it's come to the scientific knowledge and making right decision. Because without evidence, we will not be able to make a right decision. And evidence-based decision making is now becoming the norm of the day. And the evidence is most of the time is based on data and statistics. Now, I'm going to go back to how do you measure the successes of the Millennium Development Goal or Sustainable Development. You need to use statistics. One of the problems in statistics that if it is not objective, if it is manufactured or cooked to make some political leaders or government officials happy, it has no value. If the statistics does not have the trust of the people, it is worthless, a waste of time and money and resources. It has to have the trust of the people. It has to reflect the fact and the fact on the ground. So you can base your plan on that, and you can achieve further improvement in development. Now, that's why you need the statistics office or agency to be independent. If the office is not independent, it is dictated by the government and want to only police the government. It's never going to serve the real purpose. And that's why you see sometimes the government changes the statistics, the data to suit their need or to make the public happy. And that's where the corruption comes in. And the corruption index is another thing. When I think in the Sustainable Development Goal, there are certain things that are missing. One of them, every country should have a corruption index. That what's happening there, how government is accountable, how government is open, and how government is operating. Because if there are corruptions, money goes to only few people, and the country has very high per capita income, it doesn't help the poor. It's only few people benefiting. So we need to get that back into line, that if you are developing, the development should be distributed to the ordinary people, not to some people who can do corruption. As I don't have to give you an example, but you can see in the newspaper these days, the terrible examples of what corruption can do for a country or for the world. And when we think that we are going to develop, sustainable develop or millennium develop, things are all normal. Are things normal? That's the big question I want to ask. Under occupation, what do you think, how Palestine and Kashmir is going to achieve anything, or Iraq and Syria and Rohingyas? Give them normal life first, and then they will be able to be part of the global community. They can contribute themselves you can help them make their life developed. Without normal life, giving them a hell and generations of people living in the tent and refugee camps, there is no such thing called sustainable development for them. And this is a shame on the humanity. And then sustainable peace is a precondition for sustainable development. If there is no peace, and people who are actually breaking peace, they are actually leading the world. In particular, I want to mention the arm industry. Arm industry, how much money they are making, and what is their ultimate contribution? Destruction of people and destruction of development. And there's no one in the world is talking a word to stop this nonsense. So that human machine that kills people, human-made machine that kills people in mass, hundreds and thousands and millions, and they make money out of it. That is a business going on, and many of the government are patronizing that and investing more money in those, destruction of humanity than sustainable development. So we need to think about that. Another normal fact is that we have a lot of divisions among the Muslims. I am very passionate. I am very realistic and reasonable person, but I have to admit that no Christian country is fighting another Christian country. But our Muslim brothers from one country is attacking another Muslim country. One Muslim country, Muslim killed by the other Muslim countries. This is unacceptable. We are all ummah of one prophet. We follow on God. We have one book, but we have a lot of problems among Muslims. So we have to revisit this issue so we can be getting back to normal life and contributing to the development. If there's no normal life, there's no development. My dear brothers and sisters, I've been observing since the 9/11, the humanity is declining and at a very rapid rate. And if we cannot stop that, if you cannot deal with the hate and racism, we are not going to achieve development. Within one country, there will be different system, different ghettos, living standard of life will be different. People will be treated differently. And that is the reality. We have seen the apartheid in occupied Palestine. We have been seeing inhuman life in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and so on and so forth. So we need to get back to humanity. Now, when people want to isolate themselves from the rest of the world, is that going to be, particularly those people, those countries leading the UN, leading the world? Now they are withdrawing from different organs of UN. This is not a good sign. You have taken all the benefits out of it. Now when it's come to contribute, you don't want to contribute. When other army of other countries commit crimes, they are under they are answerable to the International Court of Justice, but not some countries. So some are more equal than the others. This double standard and hypocrisy should not prevail. And every country, every nation should be standing for justice. There should be honesty, there should be transparency, accountability, and compassion. Human being has compassion, human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala start Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. He is a compassionate Lord. And if we don't have compassion, that's part of Judaism, that's part of Christianity, part of Islam, and that humanity, part of the humanity. So if we don't stop the declining humanity, we are not going to achieve much significant development. There would be probably isolated incidents, but not universal development and sustainable development that we believe in. As Muslims, we are Khair Ummah. We are the best nations, but we are performing the worst because of our disunity, because of our lack of education, because we are away from the true teaching of Islam. When I read Islam, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human being as Khalifa, not Muslims as Khalifa, human being as Khalifa. And Muslims are part of it. The non-Muslim are also Khalifatullah. We have just cut down our Islam to ourselves. Islam being universal, Islam being to every human, for every human being, we have just cut it size to our need. This is not correct. As Khalifatullah, we have obligation and the other human being also Khalifatullah, they are just answerable to Allah as much as we are. We are not answerable for them, they are not answerable for us. But we should be working on the model of Medina. What did Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do in Medina? Well, he did development, he did everything, but core of his teachings was accepting the faith of other people. Do whatever I want to believe, your belief is yours, my belief is mine. Lakum dinukum waliya din. That's the teaching of the Quran. I don't have to force anybody to be believing anything or non-believing anything. This is up to the individuals. That multi-faith acceptance, inclusiveness of every faith in the society, that will give the sense of belongingness to the citizen, so they can feel equal in terms of responsibility and obligation to develop the country. And the same way, the culture of other people must be respected. We Muslims respect the place of worship of others. We're not allowed to do any harm to others. Our Prophet said, if a non-believer is hurt by a Muslim, he himself will stand in front of Allah, in front of the non-believer. I mean, you cannot find a second example in the history of mankind. No wonder when we read the book, the 100th, number 1 is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He stood for peace. Even we look at the Fateh Mubin, the Hudaybiyah Treaty, the conditions were very in favor of the Muslims, but he accepted that because he wanted peace. If there is peace, nobody going to stop Islam. And we Muslims should understand that. We should not be fighting ourselves. We should be promoting peace. And for that, if we need to take the back step strategically, we should be considering that. We should not be doing the same thing as non-believer doing, so there is no peace in existence. And we are for actually falah. We say hayal al-falah, hayal al-falah. We are the benefit of the mankind, and that includes all kind of falah. The economic falah, the environmental falah, the educational falah, the health falah, and you can name it everything. That's everything included. Your sustainable goal. Islam has given us that. The United Nations has just taken some of them. And I hope that if those are achieved, it will be good. But coronavirus, the pandemic, has taken everything backward, and it's going to be taking much longer than what it would be otherwise to achieve those goals. But if those goals are achieved, some people will be benefited. As I said, if we want to have an universal sustainable development, we have to take the universal approach of dealing with the hate and racism, and unite people, give the inclusivity in terms of faith and culture, so people can work on an equal basis and contribute to their development, not only for the material development of wealth, but also human development, so human being become like human being and behave like human being. Finally, I want to thank the organizer again for giving me the time. If I say anything good, may Allah give us the barakah and benefit out of it. If I say anything wrong, may Allah correct me, and I also seek forgiveness from you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Shahjahan Khan, for his speech. The speech was thought-provoking, which I believe definitely enlightened so many people like me. And he has mentioned so many issues. He focused on the Muslim unity with some very important principles, unity with differences, unity in diversity. So Muslim world should be united for the collective benefits of the people. And at the same time, he also mentioned the issue of Palestine and Rohingya issues, and also raised the issue of humanity. Humanity should prevail among all other things. And also he mentioned the issue of racism, which definitely should be mitigated in human society. So we are at the very end part of our session. Thank you very much again, all our speakers, for their very thought-provoking and very beautiful speeches. Finally, now I want to go to the chair of our seminar. He is Dr. Noor Rahman, Chief Executive Officer, Brunei Halal Foods, Brunei Darussalam. Please, the floor to Dr. Noor Rahman. Please unmute the microphone, Dr. Noor Rahman. Thank you. Perfect.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya al mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallam. Honorable Chief Guest, respected keynote speakers, respected learned discussants, inaugural address provider, welcome speech provider, moderator, viewers, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am deeply honored to have been selected as the chair of this very timely subject matter. As the chair, actually, I was just listening to the learned speakers, discussants, and others. We have spent nearly 2 hours. So, but as the chair, I need to just quickly summarize and thank you all. First of all, thank you all for your very well thought speeches. And I am pretty sure we and the Muslim Ummah and the other countries and people will be benefited from your thoughtful speeches. Everyone has contributed so nicely, and this is something record. I would suggest the organizers to put this together in the form of papers and publish it. And I'm pretty sure that if it is published properly, the countries, the people, the organizers, the policymakers will be benefited out of this. We went through highlighting very salient points and issues and challenges on the Sustainable Development Goal. Keynote speaker Dr. Mehdi Hassan very precisely spoken about the effect of economy and contraction of economy, while it is yet to determine the extent of the total loss and total contraction of the economy, but up until now, only now, it is about $2 trillion losses of economy because of this COVID-19 crisis. So obviously impact on tourism, loss of unemployment, increasing poverty, and some of them are extreme poverty and also malnutrition is going to increase significantly. Dr. Mazhar Islam highlighted about the environmental impact. This is a very important subject, how the environment can impact on the Sustainable Development Goal, and the COVID has created the environment and the new normal that we are going to face. Are we ready for it? Professor Mohammed Tahir Khalili highlighted a very nice point about the changes of people's belief mindset. This is a very important point. We can talk about all these things day and night, but actually, is it going through the ears of the policy makers? Is it going through the right people? Are they changing their mind? And we have seen there are people, even general public, educated people, learned people, they are not following the guidelines of the COVID-19 and impacting. It has been 6 months. If we use some countries, for example, New Zealand, for Brunei itself, I am in Brunei, Alhamdulillah, the country for the last 2 months, there is no new cases. Similarly, New Zealand and many other countries have been able to, by doing only following the guidelines of health. Actually, this is the guideline from the Hadith. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is 1400 years ago clearly stated, but we actually, Muslims, do not actually value the teachings of Islam. Our teachings are taken by the other religions. Our teachings are taken by the other religions. They are taking the credits, but we should be taking the credits for the teachings, how this has been, and the dua, the Allahumma inni a'udhu min al-barasi wal jununi wal juzami wa min sayyi al-askam. So these are the already done 1400 years ago. So, but we could not take the credit, neither we followed. So it's important. So changing the mindset is important. And Mr. Muhammad Salahuddin Qasim Khan is a very learned person and also as a very good organizer, and from the private perspective, he is one of the biggest business person and entrepreneur in Bangladesh, an internationally renowned entrepreneur. So he has raised very valid points in terms of ignoring the recommendation. It is not nothing new. There are Spanish flu. There are situations it happened in the past, and the policymaker, the world leaders, they do not listen. And recommendation was there, and they were not perhaps following it. So that's what is the point of talking about all this if the policymaker do not actually follow the recommendation of the scientists? And the big question is, can we actually achieve the 2030 target of sustainable development goal? So it's a big challenge, but yes, if we look at once again, go back to the teachings of Islam, we should be able to, and we definitely can. I mean, in terms of the OIC countries, Mr. Salahuddin Qasim Khan mentioned that $65 billion worth of food product that is imported between the countries. So if we focus, if we collaborate between the Islamic countries, today's perspective, if we look at Islamic country has got the market, Islamic country has got the product, Islamic country has got everything. We don't have to go to anyone else today if we are cooperating between ourselves. The challenge is, Professor Dr. Shahjahan Khan rightly mentioned, we are not actually united. We are not cooperating ourselves. We are not following the teachings of Islam. We are saying that we are Ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but are we actually following the teachings of Islam? Are we actually following the teachings of Quran and Sunnah? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Waste of food. We are wasting tons and tons of food. Mr. Salahuddin Khan mentioned rightly. And in terms of food security, if just we take the waste food before they become waste and pack them and supply to the poor people, there should not be anyone hungry. There should not be anyone sleeping overnight without food. But we are not doing this. So low-income earners are not getting food. Zakats are not organized. People are buying saris and all this, and they are distributing. There is no organized way. Mr. Salahuddin Khan, Qasim Khan rightly mentioned. And between the OIC countries, is there any proper lending system? IDB, Islamic Development Bank, and the OIC countries, this is the time to consider that how they are going to organize a loan and cash that is needed for the Muslim poor people in different countries. So it can be done, but it has to be done through the organized manner, OIC countries. And Mr. Salahuddin Qasim Khan has been working very hard behind the SIACO Foundation between these countries. And hopefully this will succeed. Inshallah, cooperation will increase. And Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Dr. Shahjahan Khan, nicely highlighted, summarized very precisely in terms of the health system is under stress, and this has changed the whole world. So once again, the Islamic teachings we are not following, and he has rightly mentioned that we are how many countries, Muslim countries, utilizing their arms on the other Muslim countries, how many millions and billions or trillions of dollars they are purchasing arms, but are they paying the equal amount of zakah, 2.5%? Are they really? So this is not happening. So this is probably wake up call for these people. Hello, you are wasting your money, but you are not following just the hadith. The Sahih hadith that if your neighbor sleeps, it doesn't matter it's a Muslim or non-Muslim, sleeps overnight hungry, no matter how much you are praying, your prayers will not be accepted. This neighbor means your neighboring country. This neighbor means your neighbor to your door. So what we are seeing now, every neighboring country is hitting another country and making the unarmed people, ordinary people, the poor, the children, the women's, they are the victim of these wars and so forth. So to get the people into normal life, it's very important. I just want to cut short. I think I'm taking too much time, but in terms of the solutions, what is the way forward? I want to just highlight some points. Once again, taking from the note from our keynote speaker, political will and commitment is very important. Providing employment, public-private investment, social protection, elimination of trade barrier. These are very important points. And if we look at the solution from Islamic perspective, it's very important. As I mentioned, all we have to do is to provide zakah in the proper manner, that is in the way it is prescribed and advised through the Quran and Sunnah. So if we look at an ayah in the Surah Al-Baqarah, the Surah number 2, ayah number 177, righteousness is not that you turn your faces towards the east or the west, but righteousness is, it's a summary of the ayah, that number one, in the one who believes in Allah, the last day, the angels, the book, the prophets. Then the ayah also says, and gives his wealth in spite of love for it to the relatives, to the orphans, to the needy, to the traveler, and those who ask for help, and freeing the slaves. And also perform salat, gives zakah, and who fulfill their promises when they promise, and who are in poverty, hardship, and visit the patients who are in poverty, hardship, and so forth. This is a very powerful ayah, and it's clearly indicated. If we want to follow the teachings of Quran, we need to take the teachings from this ayah that we need to pay zakah. And it was in the another ayah, it says, not when you have wealth, when you are poor, when you are wealthy, always you have to pay zakah, you have to pay zakat. So it's the advice, the teachings of Quran. So inshallah, the way forward, I would suggest that if we follow the teachings of Quran and Sunnah, and it's a wake-up call for all the Muslim people around the Muslim countries, especially the political leaders, the policymakers, and all the organizations. I think we need to work together to achieve. And if we are together, we can not only eliminate poverty, not only achieve our SDG goals within 2030, we can give an example, show an example to the other non-Muslim ones. This is the way to show so that the non-Muslim become Muslims. It's our responsibility to give this message from the Quran and Sunnah to the non-Muslims. By doing all these things, we can actually give this message. It's our inherent duty to give this message to the non-Muslims so that they can come towards the righteous path, to the Quran and Sunnah. I think I have taken enough time. Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I want to thank again to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to become the chair of this auspicious. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noor Rahman, for his wonderful speech as the chair of this seminar. Respected viewers, so many issues we have discussed today. Definitely, the topic we have chosen, it requires 100 hours to discuss elaborately. But credit goes to our honorable speakers who made their speeches very short, very precise. And our target was to finish the seminar within 100 hours. But we have taken only 8 minutes extra, but definitely we could finish our target within time. So many issues have been raised in this seminar. The issue was sustainable development that was defined is to meet the needs of present generation without affecting the ability of future generation, which was followed by Millennium Development Goals from 2000 to 2015. And SDGs has definitely 17 particular goals along with other 179 indicators, and all the issues that has been mentioned in these goals and indicators that were reflected clearly, categorically in our Islamic values. That is one of the things. And the second thing is our chair specifically mentioned the equality. Definitely we have know the system is equality before law. All the people of the world should be treated equally before the law and should get the equal protection before law, and these principles also get highlighted in our Islamic values. And also he mentioned categorically the unity of Muslim Ummah. In this perspective, we can say that Muslim majority countries must take it upon themselves to strengthen ties of mutual solidarity. That is very important, especially in this very particular period of time, by exchanging their internal public health expertise or personnel, equipment, and financial aid. And at the same time, we can take this COVID-19 pandemic situation as a wake-up call that our chair rightly mentioned, that can be a wake-up call to be united, all especially 57 YC member countries. And I also give thanks to all our honorable speakers to come and to share their opinions from their respective fields. And I do apologize for all sort of inconveniences, shortcomings from our side. And definitely we got some positive responses from our viewers. Inshallah, by the grace of Allah and by the support, by the cooperation of our respective guests, we would continue this sort of initiatives in coming days. With this note, I want to conclude this international webinar with giving a special thanks to our guests and to our viewers. Thank you very much once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.